Good evening. My name is Harry Coughlin. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Nassau County Industrial Development Agency. On behalf of our chairman, members of the board, and staff, I welcome you to today's open meeting of the Board of Directors. Today is August 25th, 2020, and the time is now 6:30 p.m. Given the ongoing COVID-19 public health crisis and related executive orders issued by Governor Andrew Cuomo, this public meeting is being conducted using telephone conference and video conference. Participants have accessed this public meeting through a Zoom registration or by watching the live stream on our YouTube channel. If you are participating via Zoom, the agency encourages all interested parties to participate and as such has reserved certain points in today's meeting for public comment. If you choose to make a comment, you will do so by selecting the raise hand icon on your device. Once you select the raise hand icon, you will have the opportunity to speak once your name is announced. Please note that this is a moderated meeting, and at times you may hear us speaking directly to our moderator, Catherine Fee, Chief Marketing Officer and Director of Business Development for the agency. This hearing is being both live streamed and recorded. In addition, we have a stenographer present who will be transcribing the meetings so we can add the transcripts of these meetings to the public record. Interested parties may also submit written comments, which will be included within the public meeting records. Written comments may be sent to my attention, Harry Coughlin, Chief Executive Officer, at 1 West Street, 4th floor, Mineola, New York, 11501, or via email to info@nassauida.org. Mr. Chairman, I now turn to you to commence the meeting with a roll call.
Thank you, Harry, and appreciate it. I'd like to do a roll call. I'll start. Richard Kessel, I'm here. Louis Warren.
Here, Chairman Kessel.
Hi, Louis. How you doing? Good.
Hello.
Good to see you. As always. Anthony Simon.
Anthony Simon, present.
Thanks, Anthony. Tim Williams.
Present.
Thank you, Tim. Chris Fusco.
Chris Fusco, present.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Amy Flores.
Amy Flores, present.
All right, Amy, thank you. And my great friend, John Kamatis. John, I think you may have to unmute.
John Kamatis present.
Great, good to see you, John.
Same to you guys.
Before we get into business, I'd like everyone to rise on the board, obviously, so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Chris Fusco, could you lead us in that, please?
My pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As we have been doing over the last several months, obviously, we're all going through incredibly challenging times. And unfortunately, many people in our country, in New York State, on Long Island, and our county of Nassau have lost their lives due to COVID-19. It's a very challenging time and all very sorrow. In recognition of those lives lost, I now ask the board for a moment of silence. Thank you. Just everyone who has been impacted, you're in our prayers. The purpose, this is a board meeting of the IDA, and as such, I'm going to give a very brief chairman's report. I'll then ask Harry to give a chief executive officer report, and then we will get into the new business, which is mainly the Engel Burman at the Beach project, and I will discuss how we will go forward with that after that. as chairman of the board, I have certain comments about the Engel Burman project and the hearings that we held both in person and on Zoom last week, but I will defer that until the time comes for us to discuss the project. I do want to indicate to the board that this is hopefully, I'm hoping, our last Zoom meeting, and I am hoping that our next meeting, September 17th, is tentatively scheduled. If everything goes well and things continue to improve, that we can do an in-person meeting of the IDA board. I do want to indicate that we did do an in-person hearing, 2 of them last week in Long Beach at the Alegria Hotel. I'll report on the hearings later, but we were able to hold those hearings following all of the safety and health guidelines issued by the state of New York. All of the participants in person, including the public, respected and followed those guidelines. Everyone wore masks. We had the microphone disinfected after each speaker. Everyone was socially distanced. And I think that is a great credit to all of the participants at those in-person hearings at the Alegria Hotel. And it said to me that while it is challenging, and we don't know where we'll be 3 or 4 weeks from now, it is my hope that based on the success of that hearing in Long Beach, that we may be able to conduct an in-person meeting of the IDA in September. So I'll just have a staff begin to think about that. I think if we do it in our normal ceremonial chambers in the county executive floor and second floor, there's certainly ability to space out and socially distance and still conduct the business of the board. You know, I do think that, and you know, a couple of people from Long Beach, in urging us to do the hearing in person, said that, you know, it's just more effective if we are all in person. Zoom meetings are okay for the circumstances that we're in, but I don't think there's anything better than, you know, being together, even if it has to be distanced apart with masks. So I will be consulting with the board members right after Labor Day, and we'll make a final decision. Certainly there'll be a Zoom option available, as there was at the hearings in Long Beach. But I'm hopeful that the IDA board can meet in person in September, or if not, soon thereafter. And the next meeting of the board, as I indicated, is on September 17th. I also want to indicate that we have been continuing over the summer the PPE programs that we've done with the County Executive Laura Curran and Hempstead Supervisor Don Clavin. I want to thank both of them for their support. We've given out several thousand kits. We have several thousand left, and I'm expecting over the next few weeks to work cooperatively with the town of Hempstead and the County of Nassau to continue to distribute those kits to businesses who need them. We are also looking into other points and entities that could benefit from PPE kits, especially going into the fall. It's the new season. Schools, for the most part, will be starting, many of them actually 2 weeks from today. And so I've been talking with County Executive Laura Curran and Town Supervisor Don Clavin and Harry and Catherine. We are working with the county and the town to designate other entities that, especially in September, could benefit from these PPE kits. and we will keep you posted about the progress of that as well. So with that, I'll ask Harry if he'd like to give his Chief Executive Officer report, and then we can get to our new business. Harry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Good evening, members of the board. I'd like to start with a quick staff roll call. We do have the full complement of the team with us this evening. With us tonight, we have Danielle Oglesby, Chief Operating Officer, Catherine Fee, Chief Marketing Officer, Ann Lamort, Chief Financial Officer, Colleen Pereira, Administrative Director, Carlene Winter, Compliance Assistant, and Nicole Gill, Administrative Assistant. My report is in the Dropbox. I'm going to be very brief this evening. The chairman's already covered some of what is on my report. I will let you know from an operations standpoint, we did execute one closing since the July meeting. We executed the Kellenberg High School closing on July 29th. That was, of course, a leak project. The NEC consent was executed on the 17th of this month, so that is complete. The chairman discussed the COVID recovery efforts, in particular Boost Nassau PPE kit program. As he said, we had a number of distribution dates. On 7/24, we distributed some remaining inventory of our own. And on August 3rd through the 5th, we distributed over 800 kits in partnership with the town of Hempstead. So really impactful program, very successful distribution. Further distributions, as the chairman said, we have over 2,000 kits still to deliver, and dates are being arranged and will be announced in the near future. In the past, you've approved a resolution for spending on a joint initiative with Discover Long Island and the Suffolk County IDA called Bandwango. Its formal name is the Discover Long Island Downtown Deals Travel Pass. That was launched with a press conference on August 13th. It received wide press coverage. In addition to the three major networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, it was picked up by Yahoo, Newsday, News 12, and a number of others. And on the first day of launch, it received 1,970 downloads of the app. So again, this is a pilot program, three downtowns within Nassau County, 3 within Suffolk. We're going to gauge this program. It is a pilot, and down the road, should we wish to expand it, we've already received some inquiries from a number of other municipalities and a number of the downtowns who wish to be included. At that time, we'll determine cost, process, et cetera, should we decide to move from pilot to full-blown implementation. Lastly, with regard to the public hearing for the project that we have before us tonight, Engel Burman at the beach in Long Beach, I just want to commend the team, the staff, for what they were able to accomplish in making that meeting happen from a technical perspective. Outside a small delay with the beginning afternoon session, this was a hybrid meeting. It was across a number of platforms, broadcasting from being live in person, our first in-person meeting since pre-COVID. I consider it from a technical accomplishment to have been highly successful. It was not an easy lift. So I just want to applaud the team for making that event happen. It was very successful, and it was not without their hard efforts. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn back to you.
Thank you, Harry. And certainly I want to echo Harry's praise of the staff, but I can also point to Harry himself. This was a big undertaking. You know, we were asked by the city and the city council president to try and do an in-person hearing. We committed to trying, and it was an extraordinary effort. And I want to thank Harry and the team for everything they did and for being there, being present, helping it. I want to thank the Allegria Hotel where we held it. They donated the ballroom to us, and that's really appreciated as a benefit to the community of Long Beach. And as well, I want to thank all of the members of the public who attended in person. Of course, we also thank the people who attended by Zoom, but everyone that attended that hearing, they were very professional. They complied with all the rules and regulations and guidelines. It was a success, and hopefully that'll continue into the future. here is what we're going to do now. We are now going to take up, we only have one major item to decide on tonight, and that is Engel Burman at the beach. We do have several administrative things in terms of minutes that we will deal with after that. Here is how I think we're going to conduct the meeting. First,
Chairman, if I could just interrupt for one quick moment on the technical aspect.
yes.
We are seeing that images are not showing through in the PowerPoint presentation. So as you do your opening remarks on the project, we are rebooting the PowerPoint. So if everybody's noticing a difference in their presentation, just bear with us and please proceed.
Okay. Thanks, Harry. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to take up Engel Burman at the beach. Initially, I'm going to ask the Engel Burman team if they would like to make a short presentation about the project. Secondly, I would ask Kevin Grims, who is our consultant on all housing projects that we do, to make a brief report to the board. Following that, I will ask the public if anyone wishes to comment on the project. Couple of points. Well, I'll get to that when I get to the public. So let's start. I want to call on Engel Burman. I see them. If they would like to make a brief presentation on the project, now is the time. And you can introduce yourselves as well. Thank you.
Yes. Good evening, Chairman Kessel and members of the board. This is Dan Deegan. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Dan.
Okay. Okay, good. So Dan Deegan with the law firm Porcelli, Deegan, Tirana, on behalf of the applicant. I'm also here, or also appearing, I should say, with my co-counsel, Peter Curry from the law firm of Farrell Fritz. We also have the principals of the applicant. We have Jan Berman, Stephen Krieger, Scott Berman, and David Berman, who are on the line with us as well. I'm going to make a brief presentation. This board is very familiar with the history of this site and I think the proposed development. Engel Burman, the applicant, has come up with an innovative plan to make this development work for everybody and break the past cycles of failure. That plan entails an as-of-right development, fully compliant with the city's zoning code, with no zoning variances required. The plan calls for 438 units and 3 aesthetically beautiful buildings, which you can see on your screen now. There's 200 condominiums in 2 buildings and 238 rentals in 1 building. 12% of the rentals will be workforce housing. There will also be 6,500 square feet of restaurant and a grab and go on the boardwalk to activate the boardwalk, which will be separately parked. There's also going to be a public plaza on the boardwalk. This process of working on this project started a long time ago. Starting in November and continuing through January and February, Engel Burman engaged in an extensive series of community meetings with various civic groups in the city, the Chamber of Commerce, and other stakeholders in the city to present this plan. Engel Burman reached out to various elected officials at the city, county, and state levels to brief them and keep them apprised of our community outreach efforts. Engel Burman has met with city officials and the city's financial consultants and participated in a recent city council work session. Civic meetings, the general feedback was very positive and supportive of the proposed development. As this board is familiar, at the IDA public hearing last week, 75% of the commenters were positive on the project. That's 75%. The SUPERBLOCK project development will generate over 1,000 construction jobs. There will be substantial economic impacts from this project, including the construction jobs and the purchase of the construction materials. There will also be the tax and pilot revenues to the city, school district, and county. And very importantly,
Anybody else lose Dan? I can't hear him.
Dan is
and
frozen. Dan, the connection is not good. You're
Peter.
freezing on us.
Yeah. So that the condominium full taxes. Peter, go back to the page, the condo units generate full tax.
If Dan's unavailable, I think we can continue from here. He'll probably log back in, but we'll continue to talk about this. So as we've mentioned before, the condo units, which are the 200 condominium units, will generate full taxes immediately upon construction. But right now, the land tax is approximately $500,000. Once the condos are constructed, that number will jump up to $3.5 million, which is 7 times the current taxes. Dan, are you back on?
Yes, I'm back on. Sorry, but can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Peter, for stepping in there. So yeah, so we're just going through the annual impacts to the affected taxing jurisdictions. The city of Long Beach will average over $500,000 a year. The fiscal impact to the school district is $1.6 million on average over the period of time. And you can see from the chart that the taxes that will be generated from the condominium units and the rental units are projected to exceed $130 million over the term of the pilot. Condominium units alone, once constructed, begin at a level 7 times the current taxes. Engel Burman is seeking a pilot only on the rental component of the development. However, the requested pilot on the rental component, plus the taxes being generated from the condominium units, will generate revenues for the county, city, and school district far in excess of the incremental costs to these municipalities. The city alone, according to their own consultants, will net $32 million in additional revenue after expenses during the pilot period. The school district will collect in excess of $75 million during the pilot period, and the county will collect in excess of $13 million. At this point in time, we're asking this board to consider granting a sales tax exemption on the construction materials and the build out, mortgage recording tax exemption on the construction financing, and a 25-year pilot schedule that will commence after the construction. This project will have tremendous economic impact, as you can hear, from the city and county and the entire region. I want to thank the board for their consideration and welcome any questions. I'll go back to the chairman for his continuation, I guess, to Mr. Grims.
Thank you, Dan and company, Peter and group. Before I ask for questions from the board to the developer, I'd like Kevin Grims to make a short presentation to the board. Kevin, if you could identify yourself and give your report, and then we'll go to questions from board members. Kevin?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Hey, Kevin.
Catherine, if you could just advance to the next slide, please. Okay, first of all, just as an introduction, Kevin Grims from National Development Council. I'm a Senior Director for National Development Council's Economic Advisory Services. National Development Council is a national nonprofit. We advise municipalities, public benefit corporations, and nonprofits on all matters relative to real estate and business development. We only work for municipalities and public benefit corporations. And one of our more common assignments is right-sizing public incentive packages to establish financial feasibility. So looking to establish what is necessary in order for developments to proceed, but sizing it in the appropriate way. So our assignment, as we've done for previous assignments for the NCIDA, is to review the IDA application, the development program, the developer financial model, and then also what the IDA does is to contract out with an appraiser to establish estimated as complete taxes based upon the proposed development. Then we also look to determine the need for the payment in lieu of taxes. And then finally, to offer comment and perspective on the sizing of the terms. It's one thing to determine a need for a payment in lieu of taxes. What we do is we take it to the next step further and determine the appropriate terms and schedule for that pilot to substantiate the fact that there is but for the availability of a financial incentive package, particularly the payment in lieu of taxes, the development would not be able to proceed. And we can confidently say on this development, but for a payment in lieu of taxes, this development would be financially unfeasible. But then we also offer comment on what is the appropriate terms for establishing that feasibility. Okay, next slide, please. So as Mr. Deegan mentioned, this is a transit-oriented development in the sense that the development site is less than a half a mile from a railroad station. So this type of development has been starting to be fully embraced by many communities throughout Long Island. And certainly the transit-oriented developments, the walkable communities that have been established through transit-oriented developments in the last few years have been well received in the markets in which transit-oriented developments have been completed in Long Island, and for that matter, elsewhere in the country. So this development site has been a particular challenge. It has been vacant for close to 40 years, and previous development efforts have been hampered by litigation and other challenges for the redevelopment of this particular site. Next slide, please. So we don't need to go into detail with the full program, but as you've heard, there's collectively between the rental community and the for sale community, condo community, there will be 438 units. Those 438 units will be supported by over 1,100 parking spaces, and 926 of those parking spaces will be in a structured parking garage. Structured parking garage adds one element of a financial challenge in that it's very expensive to construct structured parking garages, but it's necessary to support the proposed development. So collectively, we're talking about almost 650,000 square feet of space. In terms of the residential, this is a mixed income development, and there will be 12% set aside for workforce housing. And that equates to 30 units of housing for workforce housing, the balance being market rate units. Next slide, please. So on the rental side, there's 238 units. We mentioned that 30 are set aside for workforce housing, and it's a tiered affordability structure ranging between 80 and 120% of area median income. Next slide, please. So the total development cost, this is a huge investment in the city of Long Beach. Almost $370 million, $157 million for the rental community, $211 million for the condominium community. Next slide, please. So there are a lot of reasons why this development site hasn't been developed. It's a very challenged development site. So in order to create financial feasibility, you have a lot of challenges. One of which is the high cost of the development, and part of the reason there are high costs is where the development site is. You have a development site on a waterfront, but you have a waterfront site whereby the design of the building, you have to be hurricane proof in order to have the right foundation. There are a lot of pilings that need to be placed into the site to establish that foundation. So we have an enormous amount of extraordinary costs. So the extraordinary costs start with the structured parking garage, which I had mentioned before. That adds up to $17 million. The other extraordinary site costs include design premium to meet the flood zone and FEMA compliance, the site work that involves those pilings that I mentioned, the water and sewer infrastructure, and the electric infrastructure. So basically, we have a design premium and all these other site premiums that add to the development costs. These costs are a lot higher than any other traditional residential development that you see in Long Island, based upon the location of the unit. That's what creates that financial challenge to be able to cover those development costs. Next slide, please. So, so I mentioned the challenges on the rental side. You have the same challenges on the condominium side, but on the condominium side, you also have very high taxes that will need to be paid by the purchasers or the purchase of those condominium units. Those condominium units will be paying in excess of $17,000 per unit. So not only will the development team have to attract buyers to pay what would be necessary to cover the development costs, well in excess of $1 million, but then also rather significant real estate taxes. So that adds a very, very high risk for the development team to undertake this program that includes for sale units. There haven't been a whole lot of for sale units, high-end luxury units that have been placed into service, multi-unit developments, and that's for a reason. Lenders don't like to lend for condominium developments, and developers, they see it as too high of a risk to undertake placing into service all of those condominium units when they can't be assured that all of those units can be sold. So there is a very high risk profile of this development. And as Mr. Deegan mentioned, this is what creates this is what separates this development from other proposed developments that have been all rental. The distinguishing factor is that it will generate a lot higher taxes based upon the for sale units paying taxes at full assessment. But make no mistake, there is a considerable risk for the developers to undertake this, and it's very challenging to assemble the financing to complete the development. Next slide, please. So for what's necessary in terms of an IDA financial incentive package, as Mr. Deegan mentioned, there is no payment in lieu of taxes available on the for sale units. There is a payment in lieu of taxes for the rental units. It's proposed over a 25-year period, and then both the rental and the for sale units will be able to realize savings as a result of an exemption on the sales tax of the building materials, as well as an exemption on the mortgage recording tax on the credit facilities for both the for sale and the rental community. Next slide, please. So the payment in lieu of tax, the partial abatement during the term of the pilot is available on the rental. So the developer had requested a 30-year schedule. After a lot of negotiation, that was reduced to a 25-year pilot term. And the terms of the abatement, it starts with 100% abatement on the improvements for the first 10 years, and it phases into full taxes from years 11 through 25. Despite the fact that there is a partial abatement over a 25-year period of time, the rental community will generate $23 million over the term. The average of that over the 25 years is $5.2 million. Right now, the current property, the property collects current taxes is $512,000. In addition to the $23 million generated over the term of the pilot, the development will also generate $107 million of taxes through the condominium community. collectively $130 million. So on an average basis, $5.2 million, which is a 10-time multiplier of what the taxing jurisdictions currently collect on the site. A very significant increment for all taxing jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So you can see the increment through this chart of what a large increase that the city, the school district, and the town and the county receive in terms of taxes, going from $500,000 currently to, over the term of the pilot, receiving on average $5.2 million. It's a nice increment based upon incentivizing this development to achieve financial feasibility. Next slide, please. So over the term between the for sale and the rental communities, the taxing jurisdictions will collect $130 million in taxes, as opposed to if nothing was developed on the site over the next 25 years, only $16 million would be collected, well over a 10-time multiplier. Next slide, please. So on the rental side, we look carefully at the on the economics of this transaction. On a as complete full tax basis, each of these units would be taxed at over $12,000 per unit. That is a very, very difficult number for any rental community to absorb. So based upon the proposed pilot on the rental side, it has been sized to achieve financial feasibility without providing undue enrichment. So the deal doesn't work without a pilot. It doesn't establish, it doesn't meet the financial metrics. The financial metrics are met based upon the proposed pilot without providing undue enrichment for the developers. They're meeting expected market returns. Next slide, please. So overall, there's $130 million of taxes that will be collected during the pilot term. The other thing that we recognize as a public benefit is the 30 units that are set aside for workforce housing. We calculated the value of that of 30 units being placed into service as workforce units. The developer absorbs a revenue loss as a result of those rent restrictions. So the value of that affordable housing, that value of that workforce housing, or the loss of the value to the developer is estimating at $7.5 million. So between the incremental taxes over the term of the pilot and the value of the workforce housing, that adds to $137 million. Measured against the benefit that the project receives based upon the savings in real estate taxes, savings in mortgage recording tax, and savings in sales tax, the public benefit at $137 million is roughly 68% of the overall package. So the net public benefit well exceeds the benefit provided to the project. Next slide, please. So that's on the quantitative side. The additional benefit is the jobs created during the construction period. 1,000 jobs during the construction period. At least 20 full-time equivalent jobs once the building is complete. And of significant note is the very large disposable income generated by the 438 units that will be occupied on the waterfront, and that greatly benefits the retail trade in the city of Long Beach. This is a model transit-oriented development one that will, that overall will have great impact to the economy of Long Beach moving forward. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Now I turn to the board members to ask if any of the board members have any questions for either Engel Burman or Kevin Grenz. Okay.
We're going to go.
Chairman Kessel, it's Louis Warren. Kevin, I appreciate your presentation. It's thoughtful, it's thorough. In your calculations of sort of a long-term net public benefit of $70 million to Long Beach, that doesn't include, I mean, it's actually understated a bit because of all the economic development that will entail being on a site that's unused today, right? So retail benefit to the city of Long Beach, all that activity around the transit authority. I think the net or the gross economic benefit is much greater than even the numbers that you calculate here, which represents an attractive upside benefit for Long Beach, Nassau County, the citizens, et cetera.
Yes, Mr. Warren, I didn't quantify the secondary and tertiary economic impacts of this, although that was done in a separate study and with a fiscal impact report that was presented to the IDA.
Yeah, no, I think that's super attractive, and actually, I think of the projects we've seen, the net public benefit in your calculations presented tonight is one of the most significant. And certainly the construction jobs of 1,000 over the course of this multi-year project would be a tremendous benefit to Nassau County and to Long Beach.
Thank you, Louis.
Just to be clear, are we going to? Will there be a fall off of the for sale property, for sale units, or off of kind of off of the pilot, or the for sale units are calculated in the entire term of the project?
In the entire term of the project.
Of the pilot.
Of the pilot term, yes.
So, and those are just, outright for sale, they're never going to be rental units. They're just going to be for sale units.
Well, I think the developer very much hopes that they will be for sale units. The downside of this is why developers have difficulty in getting financing for sale units, is the alternative is that you have to convert them to rental. It would be very difficult if the developer had to convert them to rentals if they weren't able to sell it, and absorbing taxes on the for sale units of $17,000 annually. That is a very substantial.
I assume, is Andrew on with us?
Yes, I am, Tim.
Okay. So out of curiosity, the typical for sale development we've done, have they been, where there is a mix of rental and for sale units, do we always calculate the pilot for the entire term to include the for sale units? Because conceivably the economic value has been made when they're sold.
So again, the pilot does not cover the for sale units here.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I think Kevin may have misunderstood your question. So the pilot in this case is only related to the rental portion of the facility.
Okay. So Kevin, did you calculate when using the full number in your numbers, both the for sale? Because that's what I was trying to bridge the gap between whether you calculated using the 400 number for the units.
Yeah,
for the life cycle.
The $130 million number includes taxes at full assessment on the for sale units, as well as the pilot over the term of the over its term.
Based on both the for sale and the rental units.
Correct.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
So of
And
that
so the-
130 million, of that 130 million over the term, 82% of it is going to be generated by the for sale units, 18% from the rental units.
Yeah, so Mr. Williams, this is Dan Deegan.
Yeah.
Just to understand, that is by design. That is the innovative part of this. You know, prior iterations of this project by other developers were called for all rentals.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So in order to increase the tax revenue to the affected tax jurisdictions, they've included this condominium component that will pay full taxes, you know, once constructed.
So, and I understand that, and so we've typically, you know, done a runoff for sale units where they, you know, lack of a better term, they ran off the pilot when they were sold, right? What I'm actually trying to get to is the calculation of economic benefit, both on Kevin's and then our other, whoever, I forget who did the other report, SBS, I think it was.
It was a Comoin report.
Comoin, okay, sorry.
On the overall benefits, yeah.
So I'm trying to understand, and maybe Andrew, you might be, to bridge the gap between the two, is the economic benefit based on the life cycle of the for sale units? Because if it is, then that's wrong. Other than the economic impact of them being built and the developer clearly needing financial assistance to build them, if you're calculating the economic benefit on the life cycle of for sale units, that's not right.
Mr. Williams, this is Dan Deegan. So one of the things that we have consistently said, both to the community and to the IDA, is that this project has to be looked at holistically because of the infrastructure, that's common infrastructure that has to be put in place in order for this project to work. The condominiums and the rental component have to be looked at together. Now, in terms of the pilot and tax projections, those are calculated separately.
Listen, let me be clear. I'm very much in favor of the project, right? That doesn't negate the fact that the numbers need to be right. I support. I don't want to talk about prior, but I voted against prior because I didn't think it was the right thing to do at the time. And it was based on the facts that existed in front of us then. I like the project. I like what's being proposed. I understand what it's taken to get here. It doesn't negate the fact that the numbers still have to be right. And so if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong. But if you calculated economic benefit based on the life cycle of for sale units that are going to be sold, then there is no, how are you calculating economic benefit to the residents or the taxpayers, and the units have been sold already years and years prior?
We're establishing the impact or the tax increment as a result of the development being able to proceed. So the proposed financial package is what's determined to be necessary in order to achieve that financial feasibility.
Yeah.
So we establish the term of what we're looking at impact to be coterminous with the pilot schedule on the rental units. During that term where there is a partial abatement on the taxes on the rental, there will be full taxes being realized on the for sale units. That's why we're calculating and incorporating that increment from the for sale units as well as the increment on the rental units.
Okay, but we have to accept that that's new math. That's not math we've held any other project to in any other standard.
So let me just say one thing. So again, this is an integrated project, and there is financial assistance on the for sale portion as well. So the for sale portion cannot happen without the agency's assistance.
No, I understand that. Again, guys, let me
try to. It's not pilot assistance.
No, I understand that, but I'm not actually even talking about the pilot, truth be told. I'm talking about the math of calculating economic benefit. I don't have these. Unfortunately,
Tim,
these
are you looking at the Comoin report?
Well, I'm trying to do side by side, but unfortunately, these are what we have are PDFs. I don't have an Excel, so other than me sitting here with a calculator, I'm not going to be able to come up with $137 million in a few seconds. So that's why I'm asking the questions. If I had an Excel, I could do a quick formula and we'd, resolve it pretty quickly. But my issue is, go ahead. Yes.
Tim, it's Lewis. I just want to understand your question. So in the past, have we had integrated project with that the entire project depends on both the rental project, which is getting pilot assistance here, and for sale units? Have we seen a project like that? Because typically the condos projects that I've seen, the reason why when the sales happen, it readjusts the economic benefit is because it's been a standalone condo project versus an integrated. So in my mind, just from a finance theory perspective, the reason why I think Grimm's work is legitimate, because and I think it's the reason why highly expensive project, a lot of fixed costs like the parking lot, $40 million, 10% of the development costs here are in sunk cost that has to be done. The remediation for the environment, hurricane protections, the pilings and all that stuff. So as I think about it, at least, is that the reason why over 35 years, there's been 3 or 4 separate failed development projects here is because of the embedded expense, the complexity of the construction project, and just trying to fit all those pieces together. I think the difference here than in other standard condo projects is that those projects have not had, a co-equal rental part of that project versus, just the standalone condo project. If
so to answer your initial question, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, we've done similar we've done extremely smaller transactions that were for sale or partially for sale. And as part of those transactions, when the units were sold, any benefits to the facility immediately ceased, relevant to that unit, until all of them were either sold or whatever the case was, based on that scenario. My concern, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you that based on the complexity of doing this build-in warrants support. It's not my question. My question is how we calculated the economic benefits associated to the units that are going to be sold. It's what is the public economic.
If I could interject for a second, and Tim, I think you are correct in that the economic benefits granted by the agency ended when the units were sold. Here we're not talking about economic benefits granted by the agency. Here we're talking about the economic benefits generated by the project. So when we talk about a project and it's integrated for so many reasons, including the cost of the infrastructure, wouldn't make any sense for just one of them. It only makes sense if you're doing 2 of them. But when we talk about the annual household spending in Long Beach of $5.4 million, annual fiscal impact, we talk about the construction impacts of the benefits of the project. We are talking about both. With regard to the IDA benefits on the project, they end actually not when the units get sold, but when the condo project is completed. So it's completed, it goes on the rolls, and then it becomes 100% real estate tax paying. So the city of Long Beach and every one of the taxing jurisdictions thereafter gets the benefit of the project. However, there is no economic benefit granted to the condo project. You are correct. So that's the reality. You need to count the benefit to the taxing jurisdictions, but there is no benefit to the condo project once it's complete.
So I understand, and I'm not in any way disagreeing with you. I think my question is more geared toward the math than it is the principles. And the question for us as an agency is understanding what are we publicly saying that the actual economic benefit is, because based on my probably bad math, but I'm pretty good at doing these Excels, we're calculating the economic benefit based on the total number of units for the entire life cycle of the project or the pilot, I'll be clear. And we're saying, well, that's the entire number. When if you did that number just based on the rental units, and how we've always done it, then that would be a substantially different number.
But Tim, so this is Dan Deegan, but the point is that the idea, without the IDA's assistance and incentivizing of this project, those condominiums are not going to be built. So it is fair to analyze the benefits from those condominiums in calculating, the IDA's, the effect of the IDA's assistance, because this is interdependent. One does not happen without the other. So it really is the IDA's assistance that's causing the economic benefits of those condominiums. Even though the IDA is not giving long-term benefits to those condos, they're giving them short-term benefits during the construction. It's causing that economic development to occur. So I think it's fair for the IDA to say, this is the economic development we're incentivizing with our assistance.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let it. I'm going to let it go because, again, my intent is to support the project, but what nobody has yet, and everybody's given me a very reasonable approach to how to do it, but no one has said to me that the math is right yet. And so, but I think I understand what everybody's saying. I don't disagree with Dan with what you just said about how, and what Peter has said about how you have to apply the principle of benefits in order for the project to be built, and to what Peter said, after the project is complete and the units are sold, the long-term economic impact will still be felt in the community. But again, I'm saying again, the presentation of what that number is doesn't reflect how we've ever done it before, and I'm not quite sure is right.
Yeah, and Mr. Williams, I want to assure you that we looked at, and we had multiple conversations about this in terms of looking at the rental community as a standalone development. But the fact of the matter is that the rental community and just the financial analysis relative to the rental community is not the development in and of itself. But we still analyze the rental community as a standalone development, and we analyze the development with both the rental community and the for sale. But it's the for sale community and the economic impact that, as a project at large, provides the substantial amount of benefit to the taxing jurisdictions. But we very much wanted to analyze the rental as a standalone development to make sure we were maximizing the impact and the revenue generated from that development.
I think, Kevin, and I appreciate that. I think what would have been better would have been to do it the standard operating way, and then provide a supplement to show the additional economic benefit. If I can, looking at a PDF, quickly determine that this isn't right, then I think it speaks, volumes that we're not presenting it in the right light, right? And I still think that it would show that the benefits are warranted, more than justifiable, and supportive. But to show it in the way we're showing it, it just doesn't, whatever. Okay. So I guess we can keep going forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim, sorry,
Yes.
just one other point here. So the agency, relied on two outside experts. The presentation that you just heard from Kevin from NDC was, although focused on the overall benefits, but particularly it was focused on right sizing the pilot. The other study was prepared by Comoin. And this is a question. Do you know if the prior project that you are referring to, I know the agency has historically been using Comoin, and I think the agency has been relying on their methodology. Do you know if in that prior report or prior project you're referring to, did they supply the analysis?
Unfortunately, I don't know. I can't even remember the name of it. While Kevin was speaking, I was looking through my file drive. I guess that's one of the benefits of doing this remote.
I think I can
See if I can find it, but I don't know.
No, I understand.
Andrew, let's move
the
on.
reason why I say that.
Andrew, let's move on here. There may be other questions from other board members. This
Sure.
board has not done a project like this. Tim was on the previous board. He was chairman of the previous board, and he certainly can answer questions about this kind of a project. I don't recollect the new board having dealt with a combination project like this at all. But anyway, one other thing before I ask for if there are any other questions. If you're speaking for the first time, would you identify yourself? I mean, we know the board members, but some people are asking who is speaking. So when you speak, if you would just identify yourself going forward, that would be helpful. Now, are there any other questions from board members of either Kevin or Engel Burman or their representatives? Okay, Tim, do you have any further questions? No, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Something popped up and I couldn't get back. No, I'm fine for right now.
Okay, so we're now going to go to the public part of this as well before we vote. Here's how we're going to operate this. Anyone that wants to comment can do so. We'd ask that people who have already spoken at the public hearings, if they want to speak again and it's something new, we'd be glad to hear from you. But since all of those comments are in the record, we want to give an opportunity for people who didn't speak at the public hearings if they would like to go first. There will be a 3-minute time limit for anyone. We will adhere to that. And this is, there'll be a clock on the screen. And you'll be able to see that clock at the end of 3 minutes. We ask that you stop so that everyone who wishes to speak and has the opportunity to do so. This is not a public hearing. If you have questions, the time to ask them was at the public hearing. If you ask a question, the response may or may not be available now. And that will take part of the 3 minutes that you have. Again, we ask that everyone be polite to each other. We respect all people. And I want to assure you that everyone who spoke at the public hearings, we heard every one of you. That's the purpose of hearings. What you need to do if you want to speak is you have to push the raise your hand button on your screen. We will call you. Catherine Fee will handle the calling of a name. You'll then be able to speak for up to 3 minutes. And again, if you spoke at the hearing, we really appreciate that. We want to hear mainly from people who didn't have a chance to speak. So with that, Catherine, I'll ask you to choose the first person that wishes to speak, if they want to.
Okay, Chairman, In the queue, we have a Warren Foreman.
Could you say that again?
In the queue, we have a Warren Foreman. Warren, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Okay,
The
Warren.
floor is yours.
I am a resident of Long Beach for 35 years. During that time, I've seen those in control of Long Beach tripping all over themselves when it came to the super block and the foundation block. Right now, I love the project. My main concern, however, is that with the prolific nature of our governing entities and getting involved in litigation, I'd like some assurance, now that you've got all the parties there, that the iStar litigation will not be hanging over the heads of the taxpayers once this is done. Thank you.
Warren, thank you. I will tell you, and we will discuss this further at the vote, that we will not close on this project unless and until that litigation is dropped. That is a condition for us to close on this deal. And that's something that I appreciate you raising. It was raised at the hearing. I have discussed it with our attorneys, and that will be an important consideration. And we will not close on the project unless and until the iStar litigation is completely dropped. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Catherine?
Chairman, we have Matthew Nicholas. Matthew, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you,
Hi,
Cap. Matthew Nicholas, 210 East Broadway, currently right next to the SUPERBLOCK. I'm curious to know if there are blueprints or layout of the buildings and the parking structures that will be made public to the residents. Because this current project will affect my current view of the beach. My second question is around Councilman Tim Williams, if the public will be seeing those final numbers around the economic benefit. And that's all.
Thank you, Matthew. I'll ask the developers to answer the question about blueprints and plans. I certainly think living next door, you're entitled to see them, but Dan or
Yes.
Engel Burman?
Yeah, so the plans are a public record once they're filed. They can be reviewed by anyone who wants to look at them. One of the things that we referenced at the public hearings is that Engel Burman has a very good track record of working with the communities. They build these projects themselves. They don't, give it to somebody else to build. So they will be very, attuned to the neighbors during the construction process. And certainly those records are made public as of this point.
Great. Is there anywhere, can you point to a link?
Well, it's on with the city of Long Beach.
Okay.
The building department. I don't know if it's a link, but you could go there and look at them.
Thank you, and thank you, Matthew. And yeah, if there is agreement on what that number is, I think the number is very significant. I think we'll be glad to provide it publicly. Yes. Thank you.
Chairman, to answer Mr. Nicholas's second question, the economic impact report is posted on our front page of our website. They just have to scroll down to find it, nassauida.org. And just to clarify, per previous discussions, there are differing reports. The report that's posted on the website is the Camoin Economic Impact Report.
Thank you, Harry. Catherine?
Okay, joining us, we have Mr. Roy Lester.
All right, Roy, you spoke at the hearing. You're welcome to speak for 3 minutes, but we really would like to hear from people who didn't first.
But Richard, last time you did cut me off, so I would like to
I didn't
speak.
cut you off. You had 3 minutes and you went.
All right,
well
you're taking my time right now.
Go ahead now. Go ahead now.
All right. First of all, Tim Williams is completely correct. This is a two-project thing. You've never done it before. And all of a sudden you're taking the condo and you're including it in all of the figures, and that is completely wrong. You keep focusing on the buildings here. We keep emphasizing the pilot. The people in the town emphasize the pilot. It's not that they're against the buildings. It's not that they're against the unions getting the work. They just want their fair share of the taxes. This is a luxury building with rents up to $5,000 a month. According to the builders, this building is going to cost $115 million to construct. If the builders borrow the entire $115 million at 4.5% over 30 years, that mortgage would be $572,000 a month. And if they rent it out at $4,500 a month for 225 units, it comes out to over $1 million a month. So there's an extra $428,000 a month, and they say they can't pay the taxes. Not only can't they pay the taxes, but for the first 11 years, the city of Long Beach has to put out $440,000 of their money to make this work. I'm only talking about the rental units. And on top of that, they want a sales tax exemption of $6 million and a mortgage tax exemption of almost $800,000. In all fairness, the public should have had a say in this pilot. There was not one single city council meeting where the public could discuss this. There was one work session where the topic was not disclosed until the meeting, and then the people were not allowed to even participate. Finally, as mentioned in prior meetings, the IDA has already decided to grant this pilot. The facts are that if the pilot is not given, the IDA does not get their $850,000 fee. It's like telling a judge if you don't get paid unless you find the defendant guilty. Would you like to be a defendant in front of that judge? No wonder people don't trust the IDAs. For your justification, you keep saying how challenging this site is because it's oceanfront. How does that figure that every other oceanfront property has been able to develop without a pilot? And you know what? Developers are chomping at the bit to develop on the ocean because it's a really nice place, and Long Beach is a really nice place. But somehow this project needs a pilot. Nobody can understand that. You justify it by saying, well, the condos will pay the taxes. Well, they'll do that no matter who develops it. The unions will be employed no matter who develops it. And if you think other people won't develop it, that's crazy. Of course they will. It's oceanfront. That's my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Roy. We appreciate it. Appreciate you coming. All the best. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Catherine.
Yes, Chairman, we have John Bendo.
Okay, John Bendo.
Good evening, everyone. For those on the IDA board that don't know me, my name is John Bendo. I'm the president of the Long Beach City Council. Just to give somebody a relevant data point that's been brought up here, the city did do its own financial analysis because the IDA did not do a financial impact analysis on the city. We did break it out by rentals and condos, and the city is subsidizing the rentals for the first 11 years to the tune of $461,000. But the taxes on the condos will be 11.8 million, so they do offset it, but there is a subsidy on the rental portion. So just wanted to give you that data point. There is a total net fiscal positive impact to the city when you take the rentals and the condos into account. Just in the interest of time, because I have 3 questions, but they're sort of multi-part, but they do include some new commentary that wasn't brought up at the hearing. So I'll just read through all 3 because you may not be able to answer them, but just to get them out in the interest of time. Number 1, if Engel Burman should sell the apartment building anytime during the pilot period, does the pilot transfer to the new owner? If so, why? Number 2, Engel Burman provided a financial basis for the pilot that was then analyzed by NDC and Camoin. The pilot and its amount is based on anticipated revenues and expenses, giving Engel Burman an expected return on investment. Any return beyond what is included in the pilot application is additional profit the developer should not be entitled to, since it is being generated by an artificial reduction in their taxes. What financial tracking does the IDA do on the project during the length of the pilot? What happens if the developer's annual returns exceed the projections in the pilot application? If the Engel Burman's rate of return on their investment exceeds that identified in their pilot application, is the pilot reduced by the amount of the excess, or is the excess returned to the taxing jurisdictions, including the city of Long Beach? If the excess is not returned to the taxing jurisdictions, why not? Question 3. During the public hearing, it was revealed that the IDA is receiving fees for the condominium portion of the project as well, in an amount of around $400,000. The IDA is not abating the condominiums, so why is the IDA collecting a fee on them? This appears to be an additional financial benefit to the IDA that goes beyond the scope of what the IDA should be considering. Meanwhile, the city of Long Beach, as the affecting taxing jurisdiction, was not included in any of the negotiations and is not receiving any benefit. Would the IDA be willing to return a portion of the fee they receive to the city of Long Beach to be used for the purpose of a public benefit? And those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking tonight, John. We'll be glad to get you answers to that. I would just say on the IDA, and people get this confused. First of all, the IDA board, myself and my 6 colleagues, do not get any salary or payment, nor are we subsidized by any taxpayer money. So that fee money allows us to do projects like this. And if the city would be willing to share part of the $32 million that you're going to benefit from over 25 years, we'd consider sharing with you the fees. I'd be glad to talk to you about that as well. I do want to say, John, I want to thank you for your help and input. You and I had a number of conversations that ultimately led to the in-person public hearings. We did have to postpone a couple of hearings. One of them, of course, was because of the storm and the power outages, but I appreciate all of your input and your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Catherine?
I would now like to welcome Pearl Golden.
I'm sorry, Pearl?
Hello. Yes, this is Robert and Pearl Golden.
Okay.
Yes, how are you? I've been a long time resident of Long Beach for almost 70 years of my life. I have some concerns about this project. Number one, I live on the corner of Riverside and Penn. We had a project some years back on the corner of Broadway and Penn. Broadway and Riverside, excuse me. I had an enormous amount of damage to my home from pile driving. So much damage that the insurance adjuster and engineers came and told me that if there was a project done on the SUPERBLOCK, it was inevitable that I have substantial damage to my home. So I want to know, with all this pile driving and all the heavy construction that you are going to have, what are you going to do to mitigate this problem? And what are you going to do to compensate me for any damage that occurs to my home and to the other homes in this area? Because they are liable to settle and to have all sorts of other damage, cracking, and all the other damage that I had to my home. Second question, we are living in a pandemic now. There is a very good possibility that this becomes endemic. It's also a possibility, and you know that many people are suffering financially. What I'd like to know is on what basis do you have these projections that people will be able to afford these luxury condos and apartments, and that the demand will be high and these condos will be sold? Because if these condos are empty and not sold or take years to be sold, how does that affect your projections, and how does it project the financial health of the project and the taxation to the government? And number three, I am concerned about the noise level and the activity that will go with this project. And I'd like to know what you're going to do to mitigate that. We, the people living in this area, will be subject to pile driving, to noise, to heavy machinery. And we, in this pandemic, where will we go to escape this? Where can we go? We are subject to this problem of having social distancing and protecting ourselves. And I am a senior citizen, and everybody's working at home. This will be a tremendous problem and hardship to the people in this area. So these are the types of questions I have, and these are personal questions, and this will certainly over 4 years affect the quality of life in this area. So I would like you to address that. I know you're concerned about all the taxation and fees, but what about the people who live in this community, who will have to survive in this community? And with this ongoing pandemic, this will make things even, will be even harder for us to survive. So I thank you for answering my questions, and I look forward to your answers.
Thank you, Ralph and Pearl. Appreciate that. That issue did come up at the hearings last week, and as I said, we don't want to make this a Q&A session, but I would ask Jan Burman, if you don't mind. Jan is Engel Burman. That's Jan. He answered those questions last week at the hearing concerning the construction, because we certainly don't want your lives to be disrupted. So Jan, or would you mind explaining how this will be different than the other projects that were built in that area in terms of the pile driving and construction noise?
So Jan, it's Jan's partner Stephen Krieger on the. You can see me I'm here. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. So for purposes, just be aware that we're cognizant of the fact that we're going to be using piles on this development. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to support the structure of the buildings, is by doing piles here, because it's so close to the water table and to the ocean. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be having vibration monitors on site to make sure that the piles are not going to be affecting the homes and the integrity of the homes next door. We're exploring different types of piles. We're exploring that right now, different types of piles, so that if we can, we're not going to be driving piles, we're going to be screwing piles. So those are the different types of things that we're currently exploring. And with those vibration monitors, we think that we'll be able to control any and all damage to any homes in the vicinity of the property. There won't be any.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Peter Curry from Power Fritz. I wanted to answer the second question that was asked. And that is, if the condominium units are not sold, who's going to pay the taxes? The developer is obligated to pay the taxes until the condominium units are sold. So once they're completed, they'll go up, they will be on the tax rolls, and taxes will have to be paid. And that will be the developer's obligation until each unit is sold.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. And I will say a little more about this in a few minutes, Ralph and Pearl, because you were both on this together, and we thank you for participating. But the IDA will take a follow-up role in this. We don't just approve a project if we do approve it and walk away. That's not the nature of this IDA. So I will explain in a few minutes when we vote what we will do so that you can be assured that we will be monitoring this project going forward as well. Thank you for your participation. Oh, I'm sorry, Catherine?
Chairman, at this time, we have no additional people in the queue to make a public comment.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me just do this in the best way I can. First, there are going to be 3 resolutions that we consider. I think we can consider them together, since we have in the past. There is a CEQA resolution, a pilot deviation resolution, and of course, an approving resolution. Before we vote or comment on it, I'd like to have a motion from a board member to move those 3 resolutions.
I'll make a motion.
Chairman.
Who was that? Anthony Simon. Is there a second?
Chairman Ketzel, it's Lewis Warren. I'll second, and I want to make a comment before you vote, though.
Yes, everyone will have an opportunity to make a comment. Before we vote, I'd like to state a few things. First of all, I would like to report to the board, I did do this in writing, so I won't extend it, that the public hearings that were held last week, we did have a very good participation. It was not overwhelming. We had the 2 hearings were last Wednesday evening. The in-person hearings, as I indicated, were at the Allegria Hotel. I would, while I think we sent you the exact numbers, I would estimate it at the day hearing, which was from 3 to 5, we had somewhere around 15, 16 people physically at that hearing. And about half of them spoke, 7 or 8. On Zoom, we had, if I remember correctly, over 175 people on Zoom. And again, maybe a dozen or so spoke. At the evening hearing, we had a few more in person. I would say maybe closer to 18 to 20 people there. And on Zoom, we had less, maybe a little bit over 100, maybe around 110, if I remember correctly. And again, at the in-person evening hearing, I would say about a dozen people spoke in person, and on Zoom, I would say about the same thing. I would report to the board that the majority of the speakers supported the project for a lot of different reasons. And a number of the union representatives and people who lived in Long Beach, so these are union workers who live in Long Beach, did speak in favor of the project. I also want to indicate that a number of issues were brought up by the public at those hearings, and actually a couple tonight that I think we can address. One, as the gentleman just said before, I thought it was an excellent question. Obviously, one of the things that hasn't really been discussed much is the litigation that was initiated by iStar against the city. And, you know, obviously, there's always a vulnerability in terms of losing that lawsuit and what that might cost the city, as well as spending a lot of money on the litigation itself. We have been told by the developers, and I think honestly, and I think they've played a very honest role here, that that litigation is expected to be dropped before the project moves forward. That's a very important thing for the city of Long Beach. And it was raised at the hearings and tonight. And as I indicated before, it's going to be important that, from my perspective, before this deal is closed, that litigation be dropped. So I want to reassure the city, the government, and the people of Long Beach of that. I think that that's very important. Secondly, this is a very important project. I'll make my final comment in a minute about my vote. But in talking to several board members, I think I am going to suggest tonight that we form a specific committee to follow the progress of this project from groundbreaking through completion. That is not a criticism of the developer in any way. We do informally do that on all projects. We don't, as I just said before, we don't just approve a project and go like this and walk away. That's not our nature. So, and I was talking about this with Chris Fusco yesterday, and we both thought it was a good idea. My thought is to form a committee that would consist of several of the board members, staff represented by our CEO, Harry Coughlin, a representative of the trades. I did ask Matty Arasich if he'd be willing to serve in that capacity, and he said he would, as well as inviting the city of Long Beach through the council if they want to designate one of their members and or a community person to serve on this committee as well. I would like to serve on this committee personally. Chris volunteered, so I will accept that. And if there's another board member that would like to participate, I would do that. and we can put this committee together to monitor the project, the construction, some of the issues raised, obviously the use of union labor, which is critically important to us, and the construction, the noise, any issues that we can help resolve. We want to be involved in this. We don't have a financial stake in this. We don't own it. This is all up to Engel Burman. They have a great reputation. I've dealt with them in the past. I have full faith in them, but I do think it's important, considering the scope of this project, for us to form that committee. So we will do that. And if there are any other board members who would like to serve on that committee, let me know. I will reach out to John Bendo and see if the city wants to serve with us on that committee as well, so we work together.
Richard, it's Tim Williams, our volunteer.
Well, thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Love to have you. I wouldn't mind having one other board member, but I won't put anyone on the spot.
Chairman Kessel, I have no problem joining.
Okay, so we've got Anthony, Tim, myself, and Chris Fusco. I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Before we vote, I'm going to give each member. You don't have to say anything, but I will start and we'll move from there. I am going to vote for this project. I am thrilled that we have gotten to this point. And in talking to some of the board members individually, I think this entire board and staff deserve a lot of credit for advancing a project like this. This is one of the most important projects that the IDA has ever done. And it's something that hasn't been able to be accomplished for almost 4 decades. I love Long Beach. While I've never lived there, I used to play skee ball, get knishes, bowl at this site. And this has been a challenge to fill for many, many years. This project will be an extraordinary boost for the city of Long Beach, the people who live there, and the county of Nassau. It will first, as the city itself has indicated, provide over 25 years, over $30 million in financial benefits to the city, as opposed to having nothing there and receive only taxes on vacant property. It will eliminate an eyesore for many people that exist right on the boardwalk, one of the most beautiful spots in the entire world. It will also drop litigation that threatens the financial viability of the city, which currently has a number of fiscal challenges. And that is an important point that shouldn't be omitted. It will also attract hundreds of new people to the city of Long Beach who will shop in stores, eat in restaurants, and become a vibrant part of the Long Beach economy. And I have heard both on the record and off the record from a number of business people in Long Beach who can't wait for that to occur. And so for those reasons, I intend to vote yes for this project. I'm very proud to be there at this historic time. This is historic for the city of Long Beach. I know that it's not perfect. I understand there are questions and there are issues. There always will be. But sometimes you've got to move forward. And this has gone through fits and starts for decades. And I think it's now our turn to give a big boost to the city of Long Beach, a shot in the arm to the city, its residents, its businesses, and to the county of Nassau. And so I do intend to vote aye. So I vote aye on the project. I will call on the board for their votes. I will go in reverse order for a change. John Kamatis.
John Kamatis votes aye.
Thank you, John. Chris Fusco.
Chris Fusco votes yes.
Okay. Tim Williams.
I vote yes.
Okay, Tim Williams votes yes. Any board members that want to comment are certainly welcome to do so. When they
Can I
vote.
just, Richie, can I, if, I didn't know if you were doing comments, but.
Oh, absolutely.
So I vote yes, most importantly, and just 2 points. One of the speakers, I don't recall who, mentioned that the IDA board had already made up its mind about this. And just for the public record, I want everybody to know that I think every board member independently has come to their decision on their own. And again, not to retrace past, but we did vote no on the prior application, and that was at personal risk. All of us received death threats. All of us had to have police escorts when Chris and John were there at the time. So we didn't decide this. We do honestly believe that this is a very good project for the residents of Long Beach, the residents in Nassau County, and it would be both impossible and irresponsible for anybody to be able to say they didn't have an opportunity to have a say in this process. And though I may disagree with the calculations, I think the project is worth supporting.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. Louis Warren.
Yes, Chairman Kessel, 2 comments and a note. First comment is that I certainly went into our deliberations fully informed from the public support for the project. As I understand it, the outpouring of speakers and attendees, about 3/4 of those local Long Beach residents support this Engel Burman at the Beach project. I take strongly our charge by the state and by the county to focus on economic development, which a large part of that is jobs, jobs, jobs. So I get to my vote. I'm supportive of the project. I get to my vote because of the 1,000 jobs that will be created here. The fact that this is a complex and a large project for Nassau County. We know it's been 30, by my calculations, 37 years since this land has been vacant. And there's been several, 3, 4, 5 different attempts to develop this project. So I'm supportive for the jobs. I'm supportive for the economic development. Chairman Kessel highlighted the eyesore. And the other comment I wanted to make, we have supported with at our board level, transit focused development. We think it's important, or at least I think it's important for younger folks who want to come back to Nassau County, our kids and grandkids. And so I think that's highly positive for this development to be transit focused. I think it's 2 blocks from the railroad station. And for those reasons and the other reasons that Chairman Kessel outlined, I think it's a smart, intelligent project. The other comment, I wanted to salute the IDA staff, Harry and team, because I think there's been a lot of hard and serious work done to make this as attractive for the county and as attractive for the IDA as possible. The only other note I wanted to, and I've spoken to Chairman Kessel about this, is that for the record, my wife and I, Lisa and I, wanted to disclose that we have been affiliated and have worked in a volunteer non-profit capacity with the Long Island Children's Museum, which is in Museum Row, for about 20 years now. And Lisa and I are being honored by the museum in early October. And the reason I highlight that is because Mr. Scott Burman is on the board of the museum and is vice chairman of the board. But in the way this worked, Lisa and I, our work with a major festival at the museum were essentially at the end of the 90s through the early 2000s, I think 2004, 2005, 2006. and I don't have a relationship with Scott Burman. We never overlapped on the board, on the Children's Museum board. But I honor Scott for his work on the board because I think the Children's Museum is one of the great cultural institutions in the county. So again, I only make a note of that for disclosure. Because we did find out after agreeing to be honored by the museum for my board work and for our co-chairing of a big festival that Scott and I never overlapped. But for the reasons I highlighted earlier, I'm supportive of the project and vote yes.
Thank you, Louis. Anthony Simon.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Anthony. Amy Flores. Amy?
Yeah, sorry, unmuting. Amy Flores, before I vote, I just wanted to make a comment. The project is a step in the right direction for Long Beach. To echo Richie's comments and a couple of other board members, it will also help eliminate the litigation that the city is facing right now. And I think it's also very important to make a note that for over 30 years, this piece of land has been barren, it's been obsolete. And this project is going to be able to bring that piece of land to life, which will help bring jobs. We discussed over 1,000 construction jobs. It's going to bring revenue to the city as well as create housing opportunities. I think that, for what it's worth, the IDA was able to secure some additional workforce units in the rental, and that workforce housing component is very important, especially when we're talking about transit-oriented development and how, this creates more opportunities for different ranges of people from different income to be able to still enjoy living by the beach. So I think it's very important to, mention that workforce housing component, especially when we're trying to keep our young generation here, living here in not only Nassau County, but Long Beach, which is a great place to live by the beach and close to, the transit-oriented development. We mentioned it's a half a mile from the Long Island Railroad. So it's a great opportunity for us to attract, people not only for workforce housing, but also for those who are fitting into that affordable component, which is also very important for us to engage with, people that are looking to still enjoy living in these apartments and still make it affordable. So I vote yes in favor of the project.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, board members. The project and the 3 resolutions are adopted unanimously, 7-4, none against. Thank you. We've got a couple of other ministerial things. We've got the minutes of both July 9th and August 12th meetings. First of all, do I hear a motion to adopt those minutes?
Chairman Kessel, this is Dan Deegan. Can I just say before you move on to other business, on behalf of the Engel Burman team, thank you very much for this board's careful consideration. And, I think everyone's going to be very happy with this going forward.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Okay.
We've got the,
thank you.
The minutes.
I make a motion. I make a motion we accept the minutes.
All right, Tim Williams, is there a second?
A second.
Second motion, Chris Fusco.
Okay, so it's Tim Williams and Chris Fusco, both the July 9th and August 12th minutes. Are there any changes or other comments on those minutes?
Chairman Kessel, it's Member Warren. I did review the minutes on the August 12th meeting, and I've shared this with Colleen. I was at that meeting, so I should be counted as present. I'm in the document, but on the first page, I should be counted as present. But that's the only edit I have.
We'll make that change.
Member Warren, I apologize for that, and I will correct that in the document.
Okay. Any other changes? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by voice, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? All right, we have a vote on the site selector magazine. Harry, if you would just take this, explain it.
Certainly, I'll be very brief. This is an opportunity to join with Discover Long Island and a number of the other IDAs Site Selector magazine is published through an organization called Conway. We became introduced to Conway through the Economic Development Collective, which is a joint initiative across all of the IDAs on Long Island with Discover Long Island. They are the lead generation company that supports that initiative. This is a magazine published specifically for site selectors. A number of the other IDAs, as I say, on Long Island are taking ad. So this is a resolution for, I believe, a $6,000 ad purchase to be placed in this magazine, which you can see the specific share. It goes out to 48,000 C-level corporate executive and consulting firms.
Thank you, Harry. Are there any questions before we take a vote? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adopt the site selector resolution?
I'll make,
Approved. Anthony, was that you?
yes, I'm sorry. Anthony Simon, I'll make the motion.
Okay, I'll second it. All those in favor indicate by saying aye by voice. Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that is approved. Ann Lamort, do we have a Chief Financial Officer report?
Yes, good evening, Chairman Kessel and members of the board. If I may direct you to the IDA and to the Dropbox, you'll see the IDA CFO report, July 2020. If you could just open that real quick. And we'll take a look at the revenue section. As Harry stated before, we really don't have any revenues. We have no closings. We've had to move our July projection for closings to September and forward. If I can go down to the expenses, we've had there was 3 payrolls instead of 2 in July. And that was the only significant thing. And you can see the cash position on the bottom. Is there any questions?
Just a generic one, and then it may be for you or Harry. When do we anticipate SUPERBLOCK to close?
I will turn to counsel for that, but I know that based on their discussions with iStar, I believe it is probably slated to close sometime this year, but I will defer to counsel. Andrew?
Yes, most certainly in the fourth quarter of the year. That's what we were told.
Okay. My question is relevant to cash flow.
And to address the revenue issue, we've been in constant discussions with Andrew and counsel to move some of these projects to closure. Any delays on closure are not on the agency's part. It's some delays that the client themselves are experiencing. Happy to go through that offline on a case-by-case basis for those interested.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Ann? Hearing none, I do want to just make a point that there are a number of other projects that are in the pipeline for board review. Several were possible for this evening, but I think the mutual decisions to focus on Long Beach. I do expect a number of these projects to come before the board, at least in a preliminary fashion, at our September meeting, and I will keep you posted on that.
Can I?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. I was gonna, Richie. I was gonna ask a question. Can we, can we ask Harry? Can you and Andrew go through that report we saw tonight, and come back to the board with some recommendations about how the calculation should be done? Because without a doubt, I think nobody challenged me on it. The math was wrong.
Yes, I have every intention of reaching out to you following this meeting to set up some time to understand in more detail your questions, and then work through them in a methodical manner to respond to them.
Okay, because I'm concerned about them passing through staff something that we're supposed to rely on as board members to fulfill a fiduciary responsibility, and it's that disturbing that it's wrong.
And I hear you on that. I will say that, as Andrew said, with the SVS report, the combined
understand.
report, and the NDC report, and all the work that the staff has done is this. I think it may be just a matter of how the numbers are looked at, but I do want to go through them in detail with you. And absolutely, if there's something to be adjusted in the process, we would do so accordingly.
Sure, and I think, Harry, you're right. I think it may be just a recommendation of how we set a standard, and then if there's a deviation from that standard, we notate that as a deviation.
And I think, Tim, for your point, I just reread the materials. I think there's an assumptions table, Harry, that can clarify that, unlike, because this project was sort of split 50-50 between rentals and for sale, that this assumption was made that the for sale piece was dependent on the rental piece. So the economic development analysis was done with folks with both parts of this project, or something to that extent. Having an assumptions table that lays that out, I think would further clarify that. That's just my.
I think you're right. I think that would have been really helpful. I think they could have done a table 1, a table 2, a combined table. I think there were many ways, but to the way it was presented, it was. I mean, again, if any of them on the at the time thought I was wrong, they would have challenged me. But there's no way you can, as a banker, as an underwriter, or anything, you can't look at that and say that it was done right.
Well, I'm not going to go that far, Tim, in my review, and I think we need to have an understanding of what assumptions need to go into this. I'm not sure anything was wrong. I think we all have different ways of calculating things, but I do think you bring up some good points. We will put our heads together so that we're consistent going forward.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I don't think it's an issue of difference in calculation. I think it's a very straightforward. My grandkids now, they go to school and they come home with math I don't know how to do, but I still know 1 + 1 is 2, right? So I think it's not how we get there. It's still going to be the answer. Still has to be right.
Right. Well, thank you. As I indicated at the beginning, the next meeting is September 17th. I will be reaching out to the board. As I said, I'm hopeful that we can convene in person for the first time in a long time, but I want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with that. So I will be discussing that with all of you. Is there any further business by any board members or any comments by any board members?
I just want to say, it's Louis Warren, Chairman Kessel. The work that you and the staff are doing, Harry, the entire team, Danielle, Colleen, the entire team with Nassau County PPE is well appreciated in the market. I've heard from at least 2 or 3 small business folks who one got it, one's going to look out for your next distribution. But that gesture in a in a pandemic where our small businesses, small and mid-sized businesses are suffering, I just wanted to commend the staff, your leadership, County Executive Karen and her team. That's something that we leaned into, and I just want to commend everyone, because that's tangible. It's appreciated, and right now businesses are struggling, and so I just applaud everyone for that.
Thank you, Louis, and I appreciate that very much. And we are going to be looking, as I indicated, at ways to expand those programs. We do have several thousand kits still to give out, primarily in the town of Hempstead. So we'll be working with Laura Curran and Dawn Clavin to move that forward over the next few weeks. And I appreciate that. I just want to say how much I appreciate the other board members. All of us work together as colleagues. This I won't attribute this to anyone, but several board members over the last couple of days have said to me, this IDA board is just an extraordinary board. And I've said this before, All of the board members are heavily involved. They read everything. They participate. Really, the best board I've ever served on, and I've served on several, maybe several hundred, but this board is just extraordinary. And I want to thank each and every one of you publicly for all of your contributions and most importantly, your friendship as well. I appreciate it very much. With that, do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion.
Tim Williams moves it. Is there a second?
Anthony Simon seconds it.
Anthony Simon, voice vote. All those in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I don't know why, but you never know. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening, a good rest of the summer, and we'll see you in September, as the happenings used to sing. See you in September. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.